afternoon. You're watching Businessworld Live. I'm Danie Laurel. Let's take a look at how the local bourse closed today. We can see on my Bloomberg terminal here, we did lose some steam here. Our index inched down 0.4%. We closed at 6924.02 today. And let's take a look at the sectors here that dragged down our index. You can see holding firms down by 0.8% together with services and financials. But on the upside, you've got industrial staging quite a bump up by 0.13%. Property as well, a little bit flattish here. There is one thing that I did want to note before we move on to our movers here, and that is, of course, the restaurant stocks that have been moving as well in the past days. Of course, you did have the likes of Jollibee having surged when there was an expectation that restaurants would be reopened for dine-in, and then paring back those gains. And today it seems that they've recovered those losses yet again, together with Shakey's as well. So all the restaurants are back to work, back in the green. This morning, recall we had on the show Karen Caballero. She was from Resto PH. She said that the F&B industry was disappointed about that quarantine policy flip-flopping. Basically, she said it's a very challenging time for the food and beverage industry, that the losses were around 1 billion pesos per week under MECQ. Let's take a look at our big movers here and the ones that was most traded. You can see on my terminal here, Mega World being the most traded here. You can see that up by 1.7%. This as the MREIT has started taking investor orders, of course, for that IPO. Recall that they had priced just today, and they're going to be book running until September 30th. Now let's take a look at the biggest movers. Alliance Global up by 1.9%, together with Bloomberry. And as I mentioned, Mega World, one of our best performers here. But on the downside, you've got PLDT down by more than 0.2%, and SM Investments as well as GT Capital. I did also want to take a quick peek at our tech companies here, especially on the back of that trade data that we had broken earlier today. Recall that electronics exports were up by 10.1% year on year. Even if that is in double-digit territory, that's still slower than the previous months. And overall, July exports rose by 12.7%, which is, of course, positive, but nevertheless lower than the analysts had expected, which was at 15.6%. And you can see IMI unchanged as of today, and Certec, of course, which does export quite a lot to the United States, down by 0.22%. But we do have one standout here, and that is Leisure and Resorts World. Take a look at that, up by 14 centavos. That's a hefty 7.6% jump to close to 2 pesos here. That's as they said. This is actually the highest they've seen since March. They said that they've started their own electronic gaming system and remote gaming platform. They basically said that that system would provide a safe and convenient platform that would allow customers to play anytime, anywhere amid the pandemic. Now, heads up, everyone, a price hike for basic commodities and other items looms. That's as the holiday season nears. Del de Vera has all the details.
For her family. Aside from meat, vegetables, and fish, JC has to buy milk and diapers for her baby, all from her weekly 5,000 peso budget. She said that usually she opts to buy in bulk to save more. But lately, she had to purchase fewer items due to higher prices of goods.
Usually, pag bumili ako for 2 weeks, nauubos agad for a week. So yung budget namin naka-allot for every week. So mas maliit kasi siya. Mas umonte, syempre. Taas ng bilihan taas ng presyo ngayon
However, the DTI said that a price hike is looming in the coming days. The suggested retail price that the agency published showed at least 50 centavo to 3 peso increase in several basic commodities like canned goods and instant noodles. Even milk, coffee, and sugar will also see an increase in SRP. Prices of condiments are also expected to go up, while non-food items like soap and candles will see an increase of 1 peso to more than 20 pesos. But during its inspection on Wednesday, the DTI said prices remain the same as most supermarkets are still selling old stocks.
Marami pa kaming pending na na hindi na isama dito sa August 29 publication. Marami pa pong produkto na iniwan na muna natin para lang hindi rin mabigla masyado ang consumer.
Despite this, some consumers like Milde have started to buy supplies they will use for Noche Buena.
As early as now then, even yung pang Christmas na gagamitin namin, we are already starting na maipon. Para din, aside from, alam naman natin tataas yung presyo, kung if ever, maiwasan din namin yung pagsama sa mas maraming tao ng crowded area during Burr months, especially mga tao mamimili for their Christmas na panghanda.
But what Milde did is just right, as some manufacturers are already asking for an increase in prices of Noche Buena items. In 2020, manufacturers already agreed not to increase prices and instead use the 2019 SRP. The DTI, however, said that they will still try to appeal to manufacturers not to increase prices as the pandemic continues. For News 5, Dale De Vera, we're One News.
Here are the other headlines we're keeping our eyes on. Forbes has unveiled the list of the richest Filipinos for 2021. Now, despite the pandemic, the top 50 tycoons in the country have become richer, with their collective wealth growing by 30% this year. The C siblings, led by Teresita C, remained on the top of the list with $16.6 billion. The heirs of the SM Group added $2.7 billion to their net worth just this year. They were followed by property tycoon and former Senator Manny Villar, who saw his net worth rising by $1.7 billion. Enrique Razon Jr. follows behind with a net worth of $6 billion. Now securing the top 4 spots are JG Summit's Lance Gokongwei and siblings, who collectively have a net worth of $4 billion. Jaime Zobel de Ayala completes the top 5 richest Filipinos with a net worth of $3.3 billion. Now, on the 6th spot are Dennis Anthony and Mary Grace Oy, propelled by the IPO of Converge ICT. And rounding up the top 10 are JFC's Tony Tan Kat Kyong, Alliance Global's Andrew Tan, SMC's Ramon Ang, and the T siblings who formed GD Capital. Now, Marikina City Mayor Marcy Teodoro said Metro Manila mayors have agreed to implement uniform alert levels in the capital under the planned granular lockdowns. Now, speaking with the chiefs, Teodoro said they decided on this move considering the shared population between the cities. San Juan Mayor Francis Zamora, for one, noted that many patients in the city's hospitals are not residents of the LGU. Teodoro also added that some residents in Marikina are working or buying goods in other Metro Manila cities. Now, though the mayors have agreed on a solution, alert level concerns, Zamora and Teodoro both admitted that Metro Manila mayors still want more clarification from the IATF on the guidelines for granular lockdowns. Teodoro also appealed for support from the national government, saying LGUs cannot shoulder all expenses needed in implementing granular lockdowns on their own. Now, health authorities have reported 242 breakthrough COVID-19 infections, which refers to patients who got the virus more than 2 weeks after inoculation. This is equivalent to less than 1% of the 13.8 million people fully vaccinated against COVID-19. Meanwhile, the health department said 0.18% of the over 33 million jabs administered caused suspected adverse reactions. Still, the health department and the FDA continue to encourage eligible individuals to get the vaccine. Well, COVID-19 is not going anywhere. This is the warning of an expert from Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security as he discusses expectations for the virus to become an endemic. Let's find out more on Bloomberg Quick Take.
Scientists conducted by the journal Nature in January, nearly 90% said they expected SARS-CoV-2 to become an endemic. Endemics continuously circulate in the community, often causing periodic spikes when conditions favor transmission, like over the winter. As we know, variants make this even more complicated. The more the coronavirus circulates, the more opportunity it has to mutate in ways that enhance its ability to evade the immunity people have gained from natural infection and vaccination. So far, only one human disease, smallpox, has officially been eradicated. So here to discuss is Dr. Amish Adalja. He is a senior scholar with the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security at the Bloomberg School of Public Health. Dr. Adalja, thank you so much for being here. So given the data that we just heard on endemics, what's your take? Will COVID always be around?
I've always said that COVID will always be around. What you have is an efficiently spreading respiratory virus that has an animal host. That is not something that can be eradicated. That is not something that can be eliminated. Smallpox was eradicated and eliminated because it has different biology than COVID-19. It was something that had no animal host, that you could quickly identify, that everybody had a rash. So it's not something that's amenable to every disease. And from the very beginning, many of us have said, this is something that's going to become endemic. This is something that's never going to go away. So we've got to come up with a way to reduce its morbidity and mortality. And that's what the vaccine does. But we're going to have COVID cases 10 years from now, 20 years from now. It's not going anywhere.
What does that mean in the short term, though? Because right now, I mean, we're dealing with still large pockets of America that's still not willing to get vaccinated. Some hospitals are struggling. I mean, what does that mean for the fall and the winter?
In the fall and the winter, we're likely going to see acceleration of transmission because this virus favors is favored during colder conditions, when it is less humid, when it is less sunny, when people have to go indoors. There's going to be acceleration, and it's going to be particularly pronounced where you've got pockets of people who are not immune. And that's going to be something that could be difficult for hospitals, especially as they contend with other respiratory viruses that are also circulating. So this is why it's so important to get vaccinated now, before the winter season starts, before we have to deal with another spike of COVID-19, even though we're not fully done with the current spike that we're seeing now.
Now, amid the threat of the Delta variant, why did the country's economic team not set aside money for COVID booster shots? That's what the Senate is trying to get to the bottom of. Regina Lay reports.
COVID-19 booster shots in next year's budget. That was one of the hot topics at the Senate hearing on the 2022 National Expenditure Program. The administration did set aside 45 billion pesos for boosters, but placed it under unprogrammed funds. Unprogrammed means it'll only be implemented if the government has extra money.
In contrast, Mr. Chairman, the NTF-LCAC has a budget of 28 billion. Ano po bang ibig sabihin nito? Ang NTF-LCAC ay nasa program fund o may tiyak na pundo. Ang booster shots ay unprogrammed o mapupunduhan lamang kung may labis na pera. Is it fiscal discipline when you have 28 billion for NTF-LCAC but zero for health workers?
Finance Secretary Sonny Dominguez said it's because there's currently no decision yet on whether a third shot is needed.
It's because at this time, the panel of experts, as well as the health authorities, have not yet determined with finality that the booster shots are proven to be necessary. Okay. Now, wait. I had a big argument with them. I don't care. I just want to make sure that we have an item in the budget that we can activate if and when the health authorities decide.
But against the advice of the WHO, many countries around the world have begun rolling out booster shots against COVID-19 to the most vulnerable in their population. That's on early evidence that the vaccine's efficacy tapers off after 6 months. In our 2022 budget, there's also little funding set aside for the construction of new molecular laboratories. In fact, the country's main lab for COVID-19 testing, the Research Institute for Tropical Medicine, or RITM, saw its budget slashed by 170 million pesos.
The 2022 proposed budget is the most detached from reality, if I may say, and has the most skewed priorities. Nag-mutate na yung virus, Mr. Chairman. Ang style ng gobyerno, sana mag-mutate na rin.
Regina Lay, One News.
And those are the biggest stories this trading day, September 9, 2021. Catch Business World live for the market open tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. and 3:15 p.m. for the market close. I'm Danie Laurel. Mask on, wash hands, stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.